Okay, awesome. So we're calling the meeting to order at 6:08. Approval of the agenda. I think folks want to amend the agenda. So Jeff, if you want to make that motion to amend it. Is Jeff even here?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah, so let's amend the agenda to move 4.3 and 4.4 in the consent agenda. Any discussion on the item? Okay, sounds good. All in favor of moving it, please raise your hand. Say aye. Huh? To the consent.
You second it.
Second, I will second it. Awesome, motion passes unanimously, and then I'm gonna push to the consent agenda. Awesome, so territorial acknowledge approval of, did you have to approve the agenda again? We'll be good now. That's not beautiful, thank you. So territorial acknowledgement, the Board of Directors acknowledges that the University of Waterloo is on the traditional territory of the Natural and Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. Our organization operates on the Halaman Tract, land promised to the Six Nations, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Good timing, awesome. Next one, 1.4. While that gets set up, I'm gonna ask for approval of past minutes. Any discussion on the item? Okay, all in favor of approving the past minutes? Steve? Just vote if you're voting to approve the minutes. Folks, our vote would fail to approve the minutes. No, it's just raise the hand. It's just procedural stuff. Okay, it's unanimous. I think it passes. If you want to take over from 1.5?
I don't need to know. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. It's 1.5, it's okay.
You can introduce 1.5.
Okay, that's cool. Recognition of main board priorities. Each item coming to this morning will be tagged as concept of these, accountability and board organization and long range planning. 1.6 now we're on. Does anybody have any conflict of interest declarations they'd like to make? Oh, Sandra.
Hi, I don't have a conflict, but in item 4.5, Nick, your motion, there probably are people who will be in conflict with that one, so they should be declaring it because they can't vote on it. And we just go, quorum would just go down to those that aren't in conflict.
That's fine. Can we? Ooh, sure. I see your point. I'm just trying to not have them have to say it in public session, but
What you could do, Nick, what you could do is
Yeah.
throw it into the in-camera. It should be in the in-camera session anyway. In
okay.
your confidential, sorry. Yeah, just throw it in
And,
there.
well, we'll provide the public update of the results, but I just don't
Right.
want anybody to have to publicly
Declare.
declare. And if there's a conflict of interest, they can declare it before the motion specifically. Seem reasonable?
Next also an update. We moved 4.3 and 4.4 to consent agenda.
Ooh, okay. Which were those two?
That's just the timeline for approval of discussion on the ownership, just recommendations for.
Sorry,
I just wanted to.
Town hall dates, and the second one was also town hall?
Yeah. Reads the discussion structure.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I'm good. So I'm caught up.
Jeff?
Yeah, you went over 1.5 recognition of main board priorities. I'm wondering if we still want to have this as a thing at all, because I noticed that none of the motions we have coming forwards are tagged. In fact, so either let's do this or let's get rid of it.
Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry. Am I still chairing, Nick?
Yeah, I'm
I knew the chair. I was again. I'm sorry. I thought Nick was chairing.
Jeff will comment at least that for long range planning, even if it's not tagged, that is actually something we're hitting today. So we're not totally behind. there are some parts of the schedule that are working out.
I'm impartial.
But maybe we should do that when we look at the agenda.
But I see your point of the direct tags. I found it nice, but I see your point, Jeff. Let me make sure that I'm not in August. My computer tells me I'm in the August meeting. That's not what I meant to do. Here we go. Okay. Okay.
So is it saying we should always remove it?
Sorry for what?
So, yeah.
No, that's fine.
So Jeff, Marvin has a question. What would you like to have in there? Are you saying you'd like to see that just removed for future meetings?
I think so. If we don't want to do it, then we can remove it, and just have it implicitly. I'm just saying we should either like tag them or remove 1.5. I don't mind either one. We can probably move on for now, but just wanted to flag it.
Got it. Anyone feeling strongly differently from Jeff? Again, I've made my point that I enjoyed seeing them just a little bit, but I'm not offended to not have him present.
I just want to make a point. Dinner link has been pasted into your chat. Please fill it out for all folks who are here so you can feed yourselves. I will post it in a second. The other one, I think it's an important thing to announce.
I now have the agenda open. We're going to move to voting on consent agenda. This is now,
That has been done.
Sorry?
Consent.
nope, we just did 1.6. Consent is now. Voting on the consent agenda, now is your opportunity to pull those dates out if you disagree with the dates for boothing or the town hall, or the co-op timeline. It's not boothing, it's a timeline. But assuming none of you want to discuss this now, we'll just move to vote. All in favor of the two motions as presented. Oh, Jay's also here. Notice. I think that's unanimous. But if anyone has voted separately, please let me know, because I do not see anyone else voting against. But assuming that that is the case, I will say let's move on to the next item on the agenda. We have Tradish coming to present. Are they already online? I'm assuming they're not in the room today. All right, they're in the lobby. Well, why don't you, whoever's in charge of the lobby, let them in and we'll say hello.
May I introduce them?
Yes, you
Yeah.
feel free if you want.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So we have some visitors here that were just admitted into the lobby. They are from Tradish. A little bit of background for you folks. If you haven't watched the video or the presentation yet, food affordability, accessibility has been obviously something that WUSA continues to talk about, and we've had solutions in the past to address some of these things, including shuttles that went to grocery stores. We've had discounts with local grocery stores in the past, as well as we did do an exploration of on-campus grocery stores about 5 to 10 years ago to kind of address food and grocery insecurities and affordability and accessibility issues to our students and members. Tradish is a Waterloo startup that helps address some of these issues by bringing a new way for our community to buy food. I think that in my discussions with them, they seem to be quite uniquely vertically integrated from their supply chain right to your door, delivering grocery to our members in a very, very different way. I'm not going to get any further into kind of what they do because they're here for the pitch. But I do ask the board members if they can save any questions around pricing, terms of the contracts to a confidential session, as that stuff is to be discussed in that type of forum. But Shrin and his team would be more than happy to take any operational questions today and follow up later with some of those more intricate questions should they arise. Thank you.
All right, please keep that in mind, members of the board. Not going to police you too hard, but be polite. With that, I guess we'll turn it over to you and tell us what you're all about.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I'm here with my colleague Nabila from Tradition. And thanks for the intro. You know, as mentioned, I'm a Waterloo undergrad, graduated in 2014, and super excited to try to bring a full campus food insecurity program here first and see if we could launch it on campus at the University of Waterloo. So I'll share my screen a bit. We're going to go through just a bit of a high level about Tradition, the programs we do, and then wanted to leave plenty of time for some questions and thoughts from your end. So I'll just share my screen. If someone could just give me a confirmation if you're able to see my deck here.
Looking good.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, a bit about Tradition, then we'll get into the specifics of what we could do on a campus like yours. But in a nutshell, we're a company, an impact-focused company, very focused on affordable, accessible nutrition. If you read a bit about us online, you'll see that we have a direct-to-consumer grocery business in many cities across Ontario. And you'll also see we've done quite a bit with food banks. Obviously, a major cohort of people and Canadians that are seeing food insecurity firsthand. We recently launched a full partnership that's all about the front end promotion during a holiday give back campaign, but also the back end, everything to do with the supply chain and procurement opportunities to help a bunch of food banks. It's a big part of what we do and very relevant to campuses that see food insecurity today. So we're very excited to talk about a full suite and a campus opportunity. You know, we had a chance to work with not only a couple members of this WUSA board, but many stakeholders across the University of Waterloo, Melissa Potwarka, Rolly Webster, who gave us a good sense of where food insecurity is hitting Canadians. And I think everyone on this call knows the stats of how it's affecting students. So I won't spend too much time here. So in a nutshell, you know, Prashant gave such a great intro. It's about being vertically integrated and making the investments to have a campus grocery program. It's typically very expensive. And I think for a university to put storage together, delivery networks together, wholesale relationships, it is crazy expensive and often prohibitive for a campus to make that work. We take away that burden, and we've invested in a lot of the areas needed to get a full suite campus grocery program going. So starting with unlocking wholesale pricing, you know, the big gap here is how do you get that wholesale price point, and before the layers and retail margins are added on, how do we make sure that consumers like you and I are paying that price? That's a big part of our secret sauce, so to speak. The second is we have no brick and mortar stores, so you're not taking on the margins of leasing, rental cost, and labor, and we're going straight with an online store and a delivery network direct to the student, so that's saving on a lot of margin and cost there. Very organized planned delivery. We're able to access the Kitchener-Waterloo Guelph area and hit, you know, any dorm or student housing area or any of the apartment buildings nearby a campus very, very easily. And then last but not least, we're a professional procurement team. So I didn't say too much about myself, but I am a Waterloo alum and spent most of my career in the investment side or operation side of the food industry. So investing heavily in getting the right wholesale relationships so we can buy at best price, not something that everyone's just equipped to do. And we have a full team that can kind of look for best price 24/7 and make sure that those prices are what are, you know, being shown and shared with students. We wanted to do a little bit of a quick math exercise to give a sense of what the savings could be. You know, a week ago when we sent this deck out to you, we did a quick comparison of one of our staple carts, a lot of the standard produce and meats that make up almost everyone's grocery list. And you can kind of see the difference. On the left-hand side, a $23 cart on our end. If you bought the exact same thing from the nearby Walmarts that are very close to your campus, it would have been about $33.50. So 30% savings gap, but a massive quality difference. Tradish isn't sourcing from the same places that Walmart would, and Tradish product has not spent weeks on shelves and in refrigerated transportation units. So you're getting a far higher quality product for savings. And we typically find, depending on the categories we're talking about here, we'll see, you know, substantial range of savings versus the nearby grocery stores. So it gives you a sense. We can unpack this a little bit later. And at a high level, our whole goal with working with campuses like yourself was we'll invest in the infrastructure and let's invest a bit together to take it across campus and see adoption. So we try to create a campus-wide membership program. Typically, when we have regular customers go onto our grocery store, they're paying they're paying around $13 a month as a subscription fee. We heavily reduce that for students, and when we enter into a formal partnership with a campus, we can bring that price down quite significantly per student. As mentioned, we have a direct-to-home delivery network, a very easy online ordering platform so that everyone would have access. And then what we do is create a revenue sharing program. The biggest bulk of spending on a platform like this is student groceries, and we intelligently from day one try to make sure there's a revenue share component going back to WUSA so you can grow, scale, reinvest in the program. And as mentioned, we've provided some details on that and happy to cover that in subsequent sessions. But that's a bit of how we like to structure partnerships together. We're a very easy group to work with in the sense that we know things need a phased approach, and you need to see some metrics and some progress. So typically we find in the year one with any campus, we're launching, we're testing, we're iterating. We want to make sure everyone in your campus has access. So our first year is often focused on adoption. We learned a lot about the programs that WUSA does have with partners like SPC today, and we need to see strong adoption to make sure it's worth it for WUSA to keep investing and scale the program. And doing the first year right requires some shared investment between both of us. Then, typically, if we see a successful first year, in years 2 and 3, you can really grow the program, and we've tried to provide some examples to you in the follow-up materials of what that could look like. And I'll end off here by saying, we are active partners and would love to, answer questions today. But as you review more of the materials, build a partnership with you. It needs to make sense for all the students. There needs to be direct savings on our store. And I think WUSA also needs to see how this program can generate a new revenue stream and help build the program into a sustainable rate. And we're happy to proceed in whatever kind of process is best for WUSA. To wrap up here, I wanted to kind of pass it off to my colleague Nabila, who should share a little bit about her experience. And we actually had some questions and small things to almost tee up and kick off with you before we answer a few other questions. But Nabila, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thank you, Suren. And thank you, WUSA, for having us. And please bear with me. I may cough into the screen, and that's completely unintentional. But I think, first off, Suren mentioned a little bit of the connection to Waterloo. For myself, I come from a background spending the last decade and a half in the nonprofit space. So it was really, Tradish's impact thesis and being able to sort of see, the impact of our work, like right here at home, often in the nonprofit space, the work that you do kind of, it makes an impact, but it's hard to see. And I think with Tradish, we're really seeing, with the rising cost of living and everything that's happening, and the minority communities and students included who are disproportionately affected, it's just a really neat opportunity for us to do something meaningful, and that's very relevant. So to that end, Suren, of course, mentioned we had the chance to connect with several individuals at University of Waterloo to understand the challenges at hand. But for WUSA in particular, Prashant, when you opened, you mentioned a little bit of some of the initiatives that existed in the past, but I really just wanted to open it up to the board and understand a little bit of your food insecurity initiatives right now, and what are the goals? Are there any tangible goals as we get into this year, as we get into the next academic year? In our partnership, what should be top of mind for us? And would love your guidance.
Cool. Anyone willing to field? Aria.
I'm usually, yeah, so thank you very much for the presentation. Just a couple of questions so I get an understanding of your business model, how you folks function here. So unlike other companies who, like Instacart, which is a much more mainstream one, so you folks control pretty much the entire, you're the ones who get the product, the whole chain system, and also I'm assuming you price the goods as well on the other end as well. So you control that whole process. I'm finding some issues here just because, for example, I look at the product you folks offer and I think it's good with the same line as things like Instacart, but I don't see how it's going to fix food insecurity here for our folks on campus. So I jumped onto your website and I looked into the produce and what are the prices. Just want to get a sense of where things are priced and how they stand. And from my understanding, it was more aligned with things like Loblaws and Freshco. I think one of the challenges we face here is that students particularly want cheap food they want no frills and Walmart prices when it comes to the produce and the meats that they get, right? I mean, free delivery is great. I see this as the biggest advantage is it saves time for these young folks. So they don't have to go shopping and so on and can stay home and focus on their studies and get delivery, which is a huge surplus. But I'm just struggling to see how this would help us cut the food insecurity, knowing things are priced more competitively with the more premium grocery chains.
I'll take some of that, and then I'll definitely, Seren, feel free to jump in. And I think we oftentimes get that, right? When people are thinking of like online delivery, the first question is like, how are you different from Voila? Or how are you different from Instacart? And I think one is, we'll talk about some of the pricing because Seren and I spend a lot of time in what we call our master inventory pricing, lots of acronyms, and we do, scrape literally every single store in our vicinity to start looking at what the benchmarks are. But the fundamentals of when you're looking at an Instacart or an Uber Eats grocery delivery is that they're going to your point, the Loblaws, the McEwens, the Pusateris, the Farm Boys, and then they're bringing you your groceries. You don't have a discount there, right? You're paying premium price, and then on top of that, you're paying a convenience fee. And then if you pay attention to what your receipt actually looks like, you pay regulatory fees, service fees, so on and so forth. Ours is in terms of our pricing, what you will see, and oftentimes it's a bit difficult to compare apples to apples when you're looking at grocery stores because of the units that they use, right? You might see some things are, defined in pieces, some of them are defined by 100 grams, some of them are defined in bags, and so on and so forth. But when we do say the 30 to 50% savings, that is like on the lower comp side, if you will. We are comparing against the No Frills, the Freshcos, the Food Basics. And on the higher end side, that's when you're looking at the, Loblaws, Metros, and Sobeys. Where we do differ is that the pricing that we're offering is one that's subsidized, right? Because we're procuring it at a lower rate because of the things that Seren mentioned, that we don't actually hold on to inventory. We don't necessarily have to pay for a brick and mortar. So for all those reasons, we can drive our costs down. They essentially say there are 6 links in the supply chain that just doesn't exist for us, right? Because we're being smarter about it. And then the second piece is on top of that, when we're talking about like in comparing to some of these home delivery services and whatnot, it's one, the pricing is lower. 2, we're using our own delivery network. So you're not having to worry about all those additional third-party convenience or whatever those types of fees are. So I don't know, Seren, if you wanted to add anything to that.
I'll add 2 quick things. So one, to the prices you're looking at on our direct-to-consumer grocery store, that isn't the best comparable also for what student pricing will look like. We know that students require a different pricing tier. And then I did want to address, I think it's a great point you made of like very specifically, why would a model like this be different than Instacart? You know that they have tons of investment, massive supply chain themselves. Number one, I think Nabila said it, they're basically taking the product already at a retail grocery store, layering on a massive delivery network, getting you that product, right? So we're skipping all of those layers. Typically also the way it works for students is that we will create a store for your campus because you can't have every ingredient that you could possibly want in a normal grocery store, take that on a student store, turn it all wholesale and still save everyone money. It's not realistic and I wouldn't want to promise you that. Instead, what we do for students is narrow the inventory and create lots of packages, bundles that actually do drive significant savings. So on your staples and essentials, you will see the savings. By bundling products together, you definitely see the savings. And then if we're in a formal partnership with you, you're not going to be paying the prices that a regular member of Tradish pays. A lot of those people do buy at Loblaws, to your point, and might switch over. So our student pricing and inventory is built to spec for you and then compare it against your local grocery stores. You'd be able to then test it yourself, right? So if we give you a store and we're giving you prices, you will naturally compare it to your local grocery stores and send it each check. So that's a little bit on that. Would love to answer more if helpful. Beautiful.
No, that's awesome. I mean, again, for me and some other folks, if you really, it's about how cheap can the grocery be, especially when students shop. So if you folks, the challenge is if we sign with you and then the local competition and grocery stores here have cheaper prices, students fundamentally will still pick those cheaper prices, right? And we don't want the program to fail. So, but that was a good answer. So thank you very much, guys.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that. For us, even the other members of your board we spoke to, it's like, what does adoption look like if we start a program here? Because the students will tell you. I think if they adopt, it's going to be because the value is there. So.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Any other questions about the ops or how we're making it happen?
Sure. I wanted to know about other schools that you're working with you don't have to necessarily be specific. I'd appreciate it, but just like in terms of number, how far along in implementation you're seeing, what sort of adoption rates, that sort of thing.
Sure, Nabila, did you want to?
Yeah, I can speak to some of that. I think in terms of like our direct to consumer grocery side of the business, we started like a lot of our university vertical conversations like just this summer. So a lot of these programs are taking shape, and like that could be report on, you know, annual numbers, not yet, but there are some universities, if I can allude to them, in Toronto and their Mississauga campus that we have existing partnerships with. And generally what this looks like is, you know, there's essentially like certain groups that will invest in their student unions that will invest in their members having some memberships with us, and specific storefronts that Surin mentioned that we will create for them. And then generally drop-offs kind of vary based on the school. Like, you know, if there's a large, say, number of students who live on res, then we will probably do a campus drop-off like at the residence or at the food center or within surrounding areas, depending on what the university makeup looks like.
And feedback from students so far. What's the sort of pain points that they've brought to you that you're looking at improving in the near future?
It's a great question. I'll start with a few. Students, we think, are really smart at analyzing price to the first question that was asked too, right? And so we think that's very, very important. People want to know and do their sanity checks that they're getting value from us. I think the other point of adoption for a campus program is actually working with the university and student unions to create awareness and get people adopting. That's actually our biggest, you know, we know every student we've communicated to, the idea and the value prop resonates very, very quickly, but there's always a step to get someone onto a new platform, get the awareness of our store out to people. So even when we speak with someone like yourselves, I think we need that support from a partner like WUSA to really have an impact on campus. It's how do we reach the student, make sure they're aware of it and the product gets out. I'd say that's pain point number one on our end.
And if I can add one thing in terms of demographic, there's also like this active student base where we don't have a university partnership or a post-secondary partnership or a part of our member network, right? There's a certain university in Hamilton that we don't have an existing partnership with, but a large proportion of their students actually do use our services. So I think to Surin's point, like underscoring that if it's a campus-wide program, a lot of it is we'll always be a third party until we get into multi-year sorts of relationships. So that kind of championing the messaging coming from the university or the group that's sort of sponsoring an initiative like this, like that is key, because it's like we don't necessarily have this like, you know, massive marketing fund where, you know, people are just going to see a whole bunch of stuff on TikTok and Instagram. It's a lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is campus presence. And those types of things are what we're seeing really takes off, is that kind of in-person communication, the sponsorship coming from universities. Those are things that would, you know, sort of really make or break a program like this.
Well, those are my questions. Other members of the board, got anything you want to say? Got any opinions, any questions for Tradish while they're still here? Teresa.
Hey folks, great presentation. I guess I had maybe two questions bundled into one. So I noticed in the presentation that you noted that there is a possibility for revenue share and reinvestment, and that it's possible to create new revenue streams for WUSA or other student unions, possibly even making these programs self-funding and profitable. Is this something that you have seen in universities that you're currently partnered with so far? What was kind of the road like there? Like, was it kind of like a long period of like incubation period for the program to set in before you start approaching that line? And then I guess within that too, I'm not, to preface this, I'm an engineering student. I'm not a business student. So this may be a little difficult for me to understand, but my understanding is like with the prices, so you know, with prices being wholesale, and I know you mentioned like the lack of brick and mortar locations allows for a lot of cost cutting. I'm just not sure how I follow that, you know, that we can keep prices at such a minimum while also even providing a revenue stream for WUSA. So I guess asking about the history of the success there in terms of the revenue stream, and then how that really works in the financial back end, if you can provide the details.
Yeah, I'll speak to the history part. Firstly, I think those are two amazing questions. I'll start with the the first one about history. Even before my time at Tradish, buying groups for food have been a big part of my operational background. And so I think the quick answer is I've definitely seen it work across groups of buyers that have similar levels of food insecurity. We've seen it work in food banks, an area that we've been working with all of us as individuals on our team for many years, even before Tradish started. To answer your question, it does take time and investment. I think I'm really glad you pointed it out. Like typically in 1 full year of testing and program development is required. You actually have to see are people adopting, what you have to do to get people adopt, and then get the prices really chiseled down and like perfect for your local, compared to your local stores. And then I think 3 years minimum is a true time frame to think about how do I get it to sustainability, right? So you use every year as an opportunity to see are you tracking and getting adoption and keep then scaling from there. So minimum 1 year development time and typically 2 to 3 years minimum to see it get to sustainability. Teresa, that'd be my answer to your first one, is what I've seen across the board. And then quickly to your point about the costs and how there's a massive difference. So one, the first beauty is that if you're buying wholesale price and the best price you can find, if you're fully invested and constantly looking at procurement, we always feel there's north of a 20 to 30% delta between that price and retail, right? So the main thing that we do is negotiate with these vendors to say, if we're bringing enough volumes of buyers to your system, package it in a way that's easy for us to go straight from your warehouse to the consumer. And that's the work we do behind the scenes to avoid a lot of the labor and time and extra touch points that need to go from point A to point B. But that's the real work, 24/7 procurement, not needing a brick and mortar store, and then negotiating very, very hard with suppliers that are willing to ship in the right way. So that's the work we do. And that operational difference does lead to a massive difference in price. But it is something you have to invest full time in to do. So that's, I think, where the cost savings is particularly derived from.
Cool.
Nabila, anything
Jeff.
to add there? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
I did wanted to add one thing. I know Jeff also has a hand up. Is that some of the Teresa also echoing Suren's piece? Like we do have some actual numbers that we want to review, but I think we're speaking more in general sense until we get to the in-camera session. So all of those things are there. Just wanted to be mindful of like the structure of the meeting as we've been advised. But Jeff, over to you.
You can speak more to the revenue share in the following subsequent sessions.
Yeah, sorry, I'll actually keep my question for the next bit.
Perfect.
All right. Any further discussion with Tradish while they're still here? Teresa has applauded, but I'm going to take that as not wanting to talk more. Thanks very much, guys, for bringing the presentation forward. I guess we'll probably need to talk for a minute or two. But we appreciate you coming with this proposal.
Thanks for having us.
We'll try and get back to you sooner rather than later, but it's the holidays, so we'll be later rather than sooner. And I apologize.
No, thank you so much for having us. I'll really appreciate the time.
Okay. Well, have a lovely evening.
Cheers.
Right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Do we want just general?
Can we talk about it, you? Can we talk?
Would people rather discuss in public or confidential for a minute about Tradish?
We want to talk about the money, so.
Do we want to talk about money?
Well, I would like to talk about the money.
You want to talk about money? Does anybody else want to talk about money?
If not, I could just say expend. I'll just use the word cheap, expensive, or medium, and we can keep it in public.
Kumar.
Oh no, yeah, I can talk about the money.
Yeah.
If we're talking about
In
making
camera,
definitely
camera.
potential
Yeah.
partnership.
You're right. Should be controversial. I agree.
Sure. All right. Well, then, let's hop into camera just to be. This is not one of those All right, well then, welcome back to public session. After Tradish gave us the presentation, Board talked a little bit about other food affordability programs that we've seen before in the region. And our plan is to put together some questions to ask Tradish to see what their plans are going forward. If they do have a proposal, what we're sort of curious about, that sort of thing. We're not committing to anything quite yet, but we're also not saying that we won't in the future. After this, in theory, we could watch a 10-minute Tradish video, but I'm going to suggest we don't, for the interest of time. Seem reasonable? I know it's an improved agenda, but you can watch it on your own time. Bedtime story. Okay. We have an item of new business, I think. We didn't switch the order of.
No, no.
All right. So 4.1 is still 4.1?
Yeah.
Cool. We have a recommendation from the Governance Committee to amend section 18.1 of the Board Policy Manual. The motion itself is be it further resolved that the amendment be approved and that the WUSA Governance Department effect the approved Board Policy Amendment. The actual draft motion itself from Governance Committee was be it resolved that Board retains the right to make the final decision on operational matters, comma, if Board deems it necessary with a 2/3 majority vote, the decision to override operational decisions should not be made in excess to preserve the day-to-day operations of the corporation. Do we have a mover? I think we do, right? By default, it's the chair of the governance committee. No, maybe.
I don't know.
All right, do we have a mover?
If there's no mover, I'm happy to move as co-chair.
Teresa. And do we have a seconder on this? You know what? Sure, I will second. Oh, no, we got Maricini. Okay, well, Teresa, you're moving the motion. You have the floor first.
Yeah, great. So, as context, this was brought up in the last governance committee meeting and was discussed and voted on there. And so I believe the bulk of the details are in the motion, but really what this is seeking to address here is not to muddle the delineation of operations from the ED, but rather to ensure that flow, sorry, my tabs are a mess. Rather to ensure that the flow of authority from Board is still present and clear in the Board Policy Manual. As we noted as well, there is a 2/3 majority, so that if there were to be a decision stemming from Board, it would need to be of a much stronger than a simple majority. And I think the intention here is not to, again, intervene on like minute operational matters on the day-to-day, but rather to ensure that critical decisions, especially on time-sensitive situations, can be made from Board, of course, with the 2/3 approval. So happy to answer any questions as well. And I know both Alex and Jeff are here as well, and Emma, who all sit on GovCom. So we're happy to also chime in with thoughts that we shared during the discussion here as well.
Sure, all right.
So my question to you folks is that what is this exactly addressing? Because Board already has the power to overrule the ED or anybody with a simple majority vote.
Yeah, so that was something that was discussed as well, is the fact that this isn't adding necessarily to the Board Policy Manual. I think the big thing though is that we found that not only do a lot of directors or really Board as a whole aren't really aware that this is something that you can do, and like we've seen this come up in discussion where we're told like this is an operational matter, but like we're never really told like ultimately you can still overrule. And that was something we felt was an oversight, at least in the context of student governance, especially because you have such a turnaround of students that this kind of information can get lost and slip between the cracks pretty quickly. And we discussed whether this was something that we could address in the training. But ultimately, we felt that the strongest way to get this across would be through the Board Policy Manual as well. And you'll note with the phrasing too, with things like remember where else in the BPM, but just trust me when I say that, like, yeah, that phrasing of avoiding things in excess, I think actually in relation to the comms policy, is also used as well. So just kind of going off of the phrasing there. Does that answer your question a bit, Arya?
Well, I would ask, like, is the purpose of this to put a higher burden on board before they can override an operational, like an ED decision? It's just like, first of all, how many board members actually read the board manual? That makes, like, that also is a question of mine. Like, does this actually make it, like, this is something I think it's redundant, to be honest with you folks. I just think it's redundant. I don't think it makes much sense, this motion in general. I think board already has this power and they know about it if they just Google what a board does.
I was a little bit concerned by the 2/3 specifically because I feel like it actually makes it harder for the board to make decisions. And I feel like pegging it to a specific number makes disempowers the board slightly in a way that I feel like is actually less effective than not having this precedent at all and simply looking at something like the Ontario Non-for-Profit Corporations Act and the way that boards are defined there. But that's all I have to say for now. I think it's probably polite to let Sandra speak.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to agree with Arya. You already have that authority in section 2 of your manual, which describes what the role and the policy of the board is. So if you did something like this in one particular section, you'd almost have to do it in every single one. So my suggestion strongly would be that you don't put it here. You already got that authority in section 2 that allows you to provide not only the direction and the oversight, but the way that you're going to evaluate. And if the issue is evaluation, then that's where you need to be focused on rather than looking at a particular number.
Alex.
Just to speak to it too as well, I did vote no on this because I want to say Marvin was present in the governance meeting and he talked about it as well, where we do have, like, it doesn't really it doesn't really do anything unique or special. It sort of just builds onto it. But I did want to say, Teresa mentioned it's something that should be stressed in training, and Nick, you mentioned Anka as well. So maybe there is some sort of intersection where you can fit all this into and let incoming boards know. I do think that's really valuable, but I did originally say no to it just because I don't feel like it does enough.
I wanted to check to see if there's appetite to recognizing that actually probably the reminder might be useful to amend this to keep the aspect which implies that board shouldn't be messing with day-to-day operations, assuming things are operating normally, but remove the if board deems it necessary with a 2/3 majority vote. So I would put forward a proposed amendment to have it instead say board retains the right to make a final decision on operational matters. The decision to override operational decisions should not be made in excess to preserve day-to-day operations of the corporation. Jeff, are you seconding or are you commenting on my amendment?
I'll comment after someone seconds.
Okay, then. Well, I'm assuming that's not getting seconded.
Can I second an amendment to my own motion? Like, I was gonna say, can I just say like, oh, this is friendly? Like, oh, I like this. That's fine.
I am thinking this context would probably be wrong to call that a friendly amendment just because you brought it forward in this context. So I'd rather us vote than just amend it willy-nilly. Because it does change the notion slightly. Teresa, are you seconding though?
I mean, if I'm allowed to, I will.
Okay, well then.
You can.
Thank you very much. Let's talk amendment. I have Jeff, then Sandra.
I guess my comment here would be one point of utility to this motion that I came to a realization of was that the 2/3 majority to me maybe adds more safeguards for, requiring such extraordinary intervention by the board, if anything. So at least me personally, if I were to support this motion, I would only do so with the higher vote requirement, because I guess that's the benefit I see being added.
Okay, Sandra.
I'll make my point again that it's not, I don't think it's appropriate to put it in one policy. Because it's a board responsibility, it should be in that policy, which is section 2 of your manual.
All right, and Teresa. You.
Actually, yeah, I would say to the bit about the redundancy then, is that the 2/3 majority, I think, does introduce that new piece there as to where it should be in the board policy manual. I'm totally receptive, and I hear what you're saying, Sandra. So I guess with that in mind, then I guess if it would help board members see the motion in a different way, then I guess I would emphasize the 2/3 majority as a kind of additional safeguard to ensure that, because at current there's not really, other than the simple majority, that's really the only guardrail, I guess, on overriding operational decisions. And at least so far with this board, we have not seen that kind of willy-nilly interference that has hampered day-to-day operations. And so if it helps board, I would emphasize the 2/3 majority here as the new piece to be considered when adding to the board policy manual.
Oh, I do have Arya next, but he's in a phone call for a second. So entertain yourself for around 20 seconds.
Please come to the SLC main entrance. I'll be the SLC main entrance. I defer my time. I will own. Yeah, thank you so much. So, yeah, thanks.
Okay, Arya.
Thank you, guys. Again, guys, this is where I stand. I think the whole thing should be scrapped, and I think you should just put it in training to teach board what it does. I think we need to follow Sandra's advice. Responsible board follows the advisor's advice. So I will be voting against the motion in total.
Just everything?
Everything. It just doesn't make sense to even have it.
So that you're clear on the voting structure. The first vote will be on the amendment. The second vote will be on the.
I think both should be scrapped.
Just don't want you to get.
I also, 2/3 isn't good either.
Any other discussion on the amendment motion from me and Teresa? All right. Seeing none, I suppose we should call the vote. All in favor of the amendment as proposed? I think that is just me. All abstentions on the amendment proposed. We got one Arya. And all against the amendment proposed. That looks like everybody else, Marvin. So the amendment fails. We're back to the main motion. Sure, Suzanne.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I think I understand anyways from what folks are saying from the governance committee as well as board in terms of clarity for the board. I think my question comes from why it would be in the section regarding the executive director, because it makes it feel like it's providing clarity to me. And I kind of already have that clarity. And I'm not sure that it feels really great to be reminded in that way. So if you folks think that it's an important thing for board to be transitioned on and make sure that they understand that, perhaps you folks would consider Sandra's suggestion to move it into the board's power section and or the transitioning and onboarding and training piece.
I'll ask a member of governance committee to reply as to whether or not that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think during the governance committee discussion, the focus was so much on the section that the amendment would happen in. So I don't think that moving necessarily where this lives in the BPM is a huge issue. And I don't think it would affect the spirit that of the motion that governance committee originally voted on. But again, like Alex, Emma, Jeff, if you guys have any other thoughts otherwise, feel free to chime in. This is just what I got from the discussion, especially with the at-large members who unfortunately aren't here.
Actually, I do have a question, which is, Does the description of the ED go outside of operational delegation as well, or is it? Because 18 is operational delegation. So it is a lot of executive director. You're right. Why is that section called operational delegation if it's mostly executive director?
Because that's what the board does, is give operational delegation to the executive director. It's just providing clarity, I think, to that. Yeah.
Further discussion on the motion.
I think we should call the question. Call it a day.
All right, I don't disagree. Aria, let's do all votes for the motion as presented, which includes all the things. Teresa, count in a moment. Okay. I think that's four. We had Teresa, Emma, Zara, and me. Sorry, Sarah and me. All votes against the motion as presented. So far. Okay. And all abstentions on the motion. We have Jeff. Jay, are you voting against or abstaining just because your hands are still up?
Against.
You're voting against. Okay, thank you. So I think I have that count at 4 for, 3 against, 2 abstentions. Does that seem right, Marvin? Against. And then I think that was Fatima and Jeff abstaining. So I think the motion does carry, as narrowly as that is. Okay, well, let's move on to our next agenda item. We already included Director Boothing and OCC in the consent agenda. So those have already passed. And town hall dates, right? All 3 of those? Or is one of those not?
I believe we put 4.3 and 4.4 in the consent.
But not 4.2.
No, 4.4.
Okay. Well, then 4.2. This is the recommendation to have Director Boothing held 2 times per week between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the Student Life Center. This is brought forward by the Ownership Consultation Committee. And I'll probably ask one of the chairs of OCC to speak to it in a moment. I also want to make sure I have the correct one up. So my apologies as I pull it out. Motion text, and this is Director Boothing. Okay. Do we have someone from OCC who'd like to present the motion? Alice, you seem excited.
I am always excited. If it's OCC, just thrilled for it. Anyways, director booths, basically what this will look like. Basically what this will look like is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. weekly director booths with rotating topics. Scheduled, basically it's an opportunity for students to directly engage with directors, specifically their student directors, which is a wonderful opportunity. We sort of trialed this 2 or 3 weeks ago with co-op. I know half of the board was able to attend it, and I think they all had a wonderful time, and the students had a wonderful time. And the research we gathered, the insights into student life are pretty well invaluable. It's a great opportunity for face-to-face engagement, and we turn it into some of our data that we use to supplement our own work, as we see with OCC. So this will be an opportunity to just extend that over the course of the year. Topics will be decided sort of as they come. And I think it's all up in the air, but I assume that signing up for it will be like 30-minute slots, sort of as directors are available for it and can attend. That helps give some insight.
Cool. I think I do have the first question. I'll second this motion, just to be fast. My main question here is, Mr. Shaban.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to happen weekly, or will there be themes? How often are you thinking?
You're asking such amazing questions. And thankfully, OCC has talked about it a little bit. Most of what we've decided to do is task it back to our wonderful OCC staff. So mainly the wonderful Jordan. We'll be deciding that, but from what we've decided, it would be weekly themes. Each theme would be a different, so safety, housing, co-op, campus wellness, anything that we decide, we would keep it in line with what we've got coming up. So we would do it based on our town hall dates that we've already consent agenda approved. Those weeks would also have specific themes on it, and it would just be 11 to 2, Monday to Friday.
All right. Discussion.
Sorry, 2 times per week, just 2 times per week,
Okay.
not Monday to Friday. My bad.
Got
That's
it, got it,
important to
got
know.
It's Monday and Friday, not Monday too.
No, it's 2 times in the week.
Oh, sorry, I'm just reading that. I got you. Thanks, Alex. All right, discussion on the motion. Mr. Zhu.
I guess I just want to flag to board that if we approve this and endorse it, it does reflect a significant time commitment on the behalf of directors. So if we approve this, we should be prepared. There should be the expectation among us that we are signing up for these slots. And I would go as far to say that, if you're on campus term, you should be signing up for one at least semi-regularly, class schedules permitting.
Alex.
I can speak to that too, Jeff. I don't think the board needs to be in a place where I'm messaging you saying sign up for this Excel spreadsheet at 11:30 p.m. So I think you're absolutely right. There should be a reflection in the hours that directors are willing to give. That's a really important thing to know.
My mashed potatoes have arrived. But I think that's an excellent point, Alex, that if you're voting for this, please be willing to actually show up and do it. I had fun doing office hours as well last term. I'll probably just roll the 2 of these together. That probably makes sense. And they were very nice Excel sheets, Alex. Thank you for making those. Any further discussion on motion, but I've forgotten what the word is. On OCC asking you guys to booth more often. Are people worried about their class schedules? Are people on co-op? These are things that you should be asking about. Or you could just be here. Yeah, exactly, Alex. Me and Ariane will be mostly here sometimes. All right. Well then, I guess you guys are gonna be oh no, we have Teresa. Teresa.
Maybe not directly related to the motion at hand, but more so just wondering about the booths themselves. Is the expectation going to be more or less what we saw with the co-op booths, where we're actively taking notes and there's set topics and questions that we need to be informed on? Because I do also hope when we run booths like this, especially when you're doing topics specific to co-op, having context and information of what you're talking to students about also goes a long way. And I don't necessarily want us to be doing booths necessarily for the sake of having booths. So I guess just wondering, in terms of the back end there, and the scope of these booths. I see Alex has his hand up, so I'm gonna let him do his thing.
Absolutely. So in terms of scope and preparation, I know this was your big thing for co-op, was getting together our information. So it's not just back and forth blathering, there's actual fact we can ground the conversation in. And what I know OCC's talked about a little bit is that we do have, as far as I know, OCC co-ops students that we can actually also include on this. So not only can we loop them in for note taking, but we can have them also do some work in the background setting before and get us prepared on these and include them into the booths. It would make the whole process a lot smoother. We can really scope it out. Hope that helps. I'm doing clearly good enough that Melissa hasn't had to correct me. So this is a good thing for me, at least.
Okay. Well then, are we ready to take a vote, everybody? Are you willing to commit to this, directors? I hope so. All in favor of the boothing schedule that Alex and me have proposed? And more signage, yeah. All in favor? That's a lot of hands I expect to show up next turn. All right, all against? I think we should have any. Was that unanimous, or was it not quite unanimous? I think it might have been unanimous. Yeah, you can drive it from Mark and Teresa. And all abstentions. All right, I think that actually was unanimous. Shocking. What is the next part of the agenda? Town hall dates. It's mine. It's an honorary question. Probably at some point here, we should go into camera, but I'll at least introduce it in the public session. And then we'll hop into camera if people want to bring up specific points. And also for the conflict of interest declaration aspect that we talked about at the beginning. The actual motion is be it resolved, the Board of Directors makes a one-time exception to the policy on director honoraria, allowing the president to retroactively approve the honoraria of directors who the president finds to be following the spirit of the policy outside of the 7-day window normally allowed to the president. Be it further resolved that this one-time exception was granted solely for the purpose of ensuring fairness and recognition of contributions made by directors. Can I have a seconder for my motion? I see Teresa. And with that, I'm going to suggest for conflict of interest declaration, and the rest, let's move into camera and we'll come back with conclusions and then immediately jump back into camera. Actually, hold on, before we do that, Mike, we do have director report. Would you want to do that at the end, possibly, Suzanne? Or is it in confidential as well, the executive director report?
We went in confidential.
Okay, well then, I'm going to suggest actually we do this, we go into camera and then we stay in camera until the ARIA's public report at the very end. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? Cool. All right then. Well, Mike, let me know when we've entered confidential, and then I'll ask for a conflict of interest declaration from directors, recognizing All right, thank you very much. As our public update, first of all, hey Nash. Second of all, we discussed in confidential the motion 4.5, which was approving a one-time exception to empower me as the president to allow Nash is out for friends. All right, hi in front then. Nash doesn't even hear that. This is the December meeting. But empowering me to make a one-time exception based off of individuals proving that they did what they would need to go into a report, but failing to submit a report on time. That was passed. We have our law range planning consultant now selected as well. I think I'm allowed to say that.
I'd like to let the other folks know that they weren't.
Okay, we've selected them. We'll let you know later as appropriate. Thank you. We've selected them. We're pleased with their choice. It was a tough competition. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from them in the future. We also had some director report that was important, but will probably come up in the future, and we do not need to discuss. Now, other than that, Aria submitted a report if you want to talk about it.
Yes, I will encourage you guys to read. We just finished our provincial and federal lobby weeks back to back, so I'm happy I'm back to Waterloo now. Success on both ends. Federal provincially, as always, they did the same thing in WUSA, very successful. But after we talked to Mr. Quinn, a whole bunch of different NPPs in Ottawa, we got opportunity to talk to the Prime Minister as well and senior members of his cabinet. Some of them no longer are members of his cabinet since the recent news. But Castle's lobby week was also very successful across the board, so we did very good on that front. We are expanding our municipal engagement with entering the Kitchener town gowns. We just got a regional representative appointed on the Waterloo town gown as well. So those are things that we are. Yeah, they just had a
I didn't
regional.
even know about that.
It was in council. Yes, I was informed. So I was lobbying for it. I'm happy that the chair of the region decided to do that. But yeah, things are good. Things are smooth lobby wise. I'm still pushing us for first full steam for CASA membership. I would probably invite actually CASA to come to board in February, if board is okay with that, to give a presentation to teach you guys a little about what they do from their perspective as well. And probably will push a vote for the general meeting for folks to see if they want to join CASA. But yeah, unless I'm forgetting anything, feel free to message me about questions and I can answer them. I think that's a decent enough summary of my November.
Cool. I neglected to submit a report, which is very ironic given the rest of today's discussion. But I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Does anyone have any new business that they need to bring up? That's not how that works. Not in a honorarium position, Alex. But ignoring that, seeing none, adjournment. Oh yeah, everybody. You sign the voice board. You can overrule me if you want, but I'm going to say we adjourn instead. Anybody against going on and not being in the board meeting anymore? All right, I'll take that as the end of our December board meeting. Thanks everyone for coming. Yada yada. Good night, Jay, and best of health to Sandra. We're sorry that she had to step out early, and we're wishing her the best. Other than that, good night, everyone.
And enjoy your holidays.
Have a great holiday.
Happy holidays, everybody.
See you in January.
Bye, everyone.
See you next year. Can I check in?